Well, I mean, it's kind of weird, right, that he did compare the size of the money to a Volkswagen. It's like Saul has had sex somewhere very uncomfortable before.
Like the back of a Volkswagen?
Saul Over Soon.
You're Slippin' Jimmy. Slippin' Jimmy with a law degree is like a chimp with a machine gun.
Who moves cones? Who does that?
Money is not beside the point. Money is the point.
Saul Over Soon.
It's a real thing. I didn't make it up.
You're perfect for each other.
Welcome to Saul Over Soon, where we're breaking down the 6th and final season of Better Call Saul. I'm one of your hosts, Jamie G, veteran mall rat, and I'm here with my co-host, Magnum Mills, who's about to tell you what we're doing on this episode of Saul Over Soon. Mills?
I mean, Hartford, the whale, baby, the whale. I am Meg Mills. Thank you for checking out Saul Over Soon. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you'd like, just by searching for Saul Over Soon. You can find our YouTube channel at JoeBlowFootballShow.com, and we're on social media at Saul Over Soon. On this episode, we're going to be talking about episode 10 of season 6, Nippy. And please be aware, Saul Over Soon is a full spoiler show. We will be spoiling every event, every episode of Better Call Saul, of Breaking Bad, and El Camino, the movie, and anything talked about in the podcast. Say the Better Call Saul Insider podcast is also fair game. This is your first and final warning.
Your Honor, may it please the court, we'd like to change the name of this show to Gene Gets His Groove Back.
Yeah, we're going to nippy this shit right in the bud here. If we didn't change it to Who Moves a Cone, we're not changing it to anything else.
Fair enough, Judge. At this time, we'd like to enter the details of this episode into the official record.
Please the court, this is episode 10 of season 6 of Better Call Saul, titled Nippy, originally aired July 25th, 2022. This is directed by Michelle McLaren. This is the third episode of Saul that she's directed. The previous two were Breathe in season 4 and Mijo in season 1. This was written by Allison Patlock. This is her 5th written by credit on Saul. The most recent before this was Black and Blue, which was earlier this season. The short plot synopsis is very short. A new player gets in the game.
Before we dive into Nippy, let's each give out our initial thoughts about the first episode of Saul, set entirely in the Gene timeline. Mills, what did this do for you here with Nippy?
Oh, man. I have to say, when the episode opened and bam, you're in the black and white, I was a little nippy. I was a little cold. I was a little shook, but I rolled with it pretty quick. I thought maybe there was a chance we were going to get, a little, I guess will be a flashback from there into the Breaking Bad timeline. Didn't happen. I was happy with the whole Gene black and white deal. I thought it was great job by Bob Odenkirk, as he's the only member of the main cast here. Thought the guest stars were great. I enjoyed it, and despite the fact that people might argue it's a little bit of a slow episode, I thought you had cool montage, cool con thing going on. I enjoyed it quite a bit. What were your thoughts, G?
Look, man, at first I was like, okay, we're going to get a little bit of a Gene snippet here. When it came back after the cold open, and it was like, I was like, holy shit, I think we're going to get a full episode of Gene in the timeline. It was a little wild with just settling into black and white the entire time. And it moved slightly slow, but I actually enjoyed it because I was figuring out what he was doing here. And I love that the little things with this episode, seeing his passion for the con still. That scene where he's in the mall after everything goes down and he's got the shirt and the tie and he just kind of sees himself as Saul again. I love this, dude. I'm actually a big fan of this. I thought the guest actors did really good. At first I was like, who the hell is Jeffy? I was like, did I miss something? But the way it came together, I thought it worked well. I think we wagered on this here pod, Magnum Mills, about would we get a full episode of Gene. I think we placed a wager on that, or we at least talked about it in predictions before this this part of the season came out, and we got the full episode of Gene. So we'll talk maybe more about predictions later on if we get another one or not. But my initial thoughts here, dude, I'm giving it a thumbs up, man. I really liked what they did here because I like that they incorporated the Saul and the Slippin' Jimmy that we all know and love into one. It's like Gene is like the perfect combination of the good of Jimmy and the slickness of Saul. So I thought it was perfect and enjoyed it a lot, bro. Enjoyed it a lot. And with that said, I think it's time to head over to the mall and see what's up at the Cinnabon.
Let's do this thing!
We start off in the teaser here as an older woman named Marion shops at a grocery store. Despite being in a mobility scooter, she declines help when it's offered. As she nears her house, her scooter gets stuck in the snow. Nearby, a man is hanging up posters for his lost dog named Nippy. He approaches her, and we see that it's Gene Tekovic. As he bends down to push her scooter, he cuts a wire, rendering it useless. With no other option, Marion allows Gene to push her scooter all the way to her house. Gene's back, baby. Saul is back here. Wasn't it cool to see him just get right back into a con?
You open the fucking episode, you're in black and white, and you see Carol Burnett, like star of the Carol Burnett show, huge star. We knew she was going to show up. So, right away, oh, this is going to be a thing. And you see like her declining help, and she's kind of like nice, but a little bit short to the deli clerk. I have to say, as somebody who worked in a deli and everything, like, yeah, that she's very much a type of real customer who exists.
You're telling me the call out on pound and a quarter pastrami, pound and a half, you went overboard last week. I thought that was funny. And working in grocery stores, you're right. Those people do exist out there. It's hard to believe. Like basically making a scene over how bad the free cheese is. It's free fucking cheese. You're out there saying Wisconsin can keep it? Fine, I'll keep it. Sharp cheddar. She's not a fan of sharp cheddar, Mills.
Well, that's funny. That's actually like Schnapps Farms. That's a reference to Thomas Schnapps, who's like writer, director, producer on the show. I think he's actually the writer and director of the next episode. So that's a shout out to him, I believe. And I do have to say, when you're working at the deli counter, they're not really mad if you go under or over a touch. It's all about thickness. I've had people have made me cut like the turkey 3 times on the various levels because it has to be this absolute, perfect thickness. They also eat the other 2 slices without complaining. So maybe I was just, someone just run a little slipping Jimmy on me.
They might be trying to get that free meat. Dude,
I
gotta
turkey
say,
breast, the executive.
That's the executive.
That was
I let shit go when I'm in the deli and ordering stuff. It comes out too thin, too thick. They go a little bit over. You know what? Don't sweat it, guy. Have a good day, guy. I'm going to go get the papers. Anywho, I didn't realize that we were going to get a full. So you had a different perspective of this because when you realized what a big star Marion was, it was likely this was going to bleed over through the whole episode. I actually didn't. So I didn't realize that was Carol. And so for me, I at this point, I still was wondering, is this going to be an entire episode of Gene? So that I thought that was pretty cool. Just our different perspectives. You kind of had a feeling this thing was going to go the whole way. I wasn't so sure at this point.
I'm glad it did. You kind of get hit with a couple of things here. You do get actually for once a shot of a real phone number on the flyer. I did look it up. It's not an active phone number, but it would be for Nebraska. And you do know, like, it's interesting. You argue like, oh, how does he know so much about the mobility scooters? Remember, he worked in elder law for a long time when he was still practicing as Jimmy McGill. He has a very good rapport with older people and probably has helped out a lot with some scooters when he was at Sandpiper and everything. So this actually makes a lot of sense, and also makes sense why he has such a good rapport with Marion.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Mills. Did you think of anything different here was going to happen when it started out in black and white? Do you think it was going to be Gene, or did a smidge you be like, okay, are we going into Breaking Bad?
What would have been the only thing that would have thrown me off is if we did a flash forward from like Pinkman after the events of El Camino. That would have thrown me off. But I think other than that, if it was in black and white, it's kind of that set language of the show when you go into that timeline. Again, especially once you get past the first scene, it's pretty obvious that if it's always been just basically the teaser. So once it goes past that, you kind of have to figure, in for a penny, in for a pound, just like in the deli.
Well done, my dude. You could say he's on fire tonight. We better cool him off with a little Nippy. Is it just totally Saul to just go with Nippy as the name? I mean, any thoughts around why Gene went with Nippy as the name of the dog? I mean, it just felt so Saul to me. Like it was very Saulish.
There's so many things he could have named it. It's just, I'm just guessing that at one point he knew someone who had a dog named Nippy, and either that or that's the picture, like that's an actual dog named Nippy that he, I don't know, found somewhere or something. It's very random. I'm assuming maybe the writer had a dog named Nippy or something like that. That's all I could kind of go with here.
Well, we know he's got skills doing the Xerox machine and the, scanning and copying things. Chuck would attest to that for sure. When this opening thing came out, were you anticipating a death? Were you anticipating like, okay, this something's going to happen with this old lady later, or she's going to bring us to Gene or someone or something? Like, what any idea where this was going during that opening scene prior to Gene stapling, the signs for Nippy on the tree?
No, I mean, I think it was pretty obvious that it was, he was trying to get in with this lady for some reason. Looking back, it was pretty obvious why. But at the time, I've got to like, I really didn't have any clue, but I didn't think it was going to lead to, any kind of real violence or whatever. Because I think there was a little question about how Saul was going to take care of his problem when he opted not to get disappeared again. So we'll talk about that in a bit. And I think the other thing is here, we do get a different kind of opening title sequence here, where we get the kind of the little bit of the music we're used to, and you see the mug and you see Better Call Saul, and it kind of like gets scratchy like an old VCR tape. And you even hear, I think, people like someone hitting like the old fashioned like stop, play, fast forward buttons. And then you kind of get like a blue screen like the old IBMs that just says Better Call Saul. I'm guessing this is what the intro for the Gene timeline looks like. Maybe if we do a Breaking Bad episode, it'll look a little different.
I liked it. I was a fan of it, actually. I thought it was pretty cool. I like that retro type stuff. So for me, it worked big time.
After the new title sequence, we find out very quickly what Gene is up to. He's enjoying a drink with Marion in her kitchen when Jeff, the cab driver, walks in. Marion tells her son that Gene will be staying for dinner. After dinner, Jeff confronts Gene while they're taking out the trash. Despite his threats, Gene knows that Jeff isn't going to tell the cops that he saw Goodman. That's because Jeff wants to play the game for real. Gene offers him the chance to do so in exchange for his silence, and Jeff accepts the deal.
You got to give it to Saul, man. I think he's always had this ability to kind of figure out what somebody wants and leverage it. And he's done it here with Jeffy. I mean, and like, how long did it take him to kind of figure out this con, right? I mean, it's just, I love the thought, the execution. He pulls it off, dude. And this whole thing with his way of dealing with this, it was basically to tempt Jeff, because and maybe, who knows, maybe Saul knew about his problems, and I don't know if he ever defended him, or he, whatever, maybe he knew about his court cases or something, but he knew that there was a weakness there that he could leverage, and Jeff wanted to kind of get in the game, man. And I mean, when you're tempted with money and girls and cars, and you're living with your mom who's calling you Jeffy, yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to go, make a decision there.
Yeah, and when we're talking about Jeff, this was actually a big thing. There were a lot of Reddit theories and everything about why we were having a different actor. Really, it's been confirmed multiple times that just that the original actor, Don Harvey, who played Jeff in season 4 and 5, was unavailable because he was on HBO's We Own the City. If you haven't seen that, it was quite excellent. And for the rest of the time here, the role has been recast with Pat Healy, who I thought did a very good job.
Yes, he did. Mills, when this was going on, any thought on what the con might be? Did you immediately go to the mall and think that maybe it was going to involve the mall, or did you have some other thought where maybe maybe Gene would tie in something from the past or something?
The only thought I have is maybe somehow that Marion might be involved. Maybe she had some money, or she had like, an elderly people thing. Because again, that was the other thing that Jimmy kind of knew. I didn't really think mall, to be honest, but it kind of, again, like you said, it makes total sense when you think about it.
It does make total sense. And I was with you on that, Mills. I kind of thought for a second, maybe it would be Con and this old lady. And for a minute, I thought that maybe it was just Saul just needing something to do with his life. He's just bored out of his friggin' mind, to the point where he's like, just doesn't want to live anymore. So I thought maybe he wanted to get back in the game. Maybe the new player in the game was Gene. But in a way you could say it was, and in a way you could say it was Jeff.
Depending on what game, I don't know what they call the pieces in Candyland, but if it was chess, Jeff is definitely, just he's pawn at best. Like, I think his friend, who doesn't even get named, he's just Jeff's friend. They call him Ricky, but that's his, I don't think he was using his real name on the job. So shout out, dude, credited as Jeff's friend. And speaking of credits, Bob Odenkirk is the only member of the main cast who's accredited here as a star. Everybody else either guest star or special guest star. And I do have to say, shout out Jim O'Hare from Parks and Rec. Dude, I am a very big Parks and Rec stan, and when I saw it, I'm like, oh shit, dude, Jerry's in this shit. I was very excited. And again, I thought nailed it with the casting. And, he did fix the scooter. Yes, it was partially because of his knowledge from working with the elderly clients, but it was also due to the power of duct tape, which I have yet to meet something I can't fix with duct tape.
Not at all, dude. And look, this is not a Naked and Afraid podcast, but one of the best items I saw anyone bring on Naked and Afraid ever was a big ass roll of duct tape. And that dude used that shit until he had to tap. Mills, were they drinking wine or were they drinking something else? And what the hell came out of the oven? What was that beautiful creation that's Dean was talking about?
I think it was peach schnapps and meatloaf. That does make sense. I have actually heard people rubbing the egg into the meatloaf before. So I'm pretty sure based on it, it looked very, loafy, I would say. And on the bottle, you could read peach. It was clear. Marion seems like the type who would drink peach schnapps. Maybe, I guess it's still a thing. It was like I think it's what people back in the day in high school stole from their grandparents' liquor cabinets. But, maybe they're bringing it back again.
Yeah, well, and that may track because, she would be grandparents, so maybe that tracks a little bit. I haven't had peach schnapps in a long time, bro. I don't know, I can't even remember. That's how long it's been. And I don't know that they would pair well with meatloaf, but hey, I don't knock things until I try them. Maybe that's dinner tomorrow night. We'll find out. So it didn't throw you off with Jeff being a different actor then. You kind of knew what to expect when with this then, right?
I mean, cards on the table. I actually rewatched the full season. It's all right before season 6 started, the full series. He's in 2 scenes, I think. So I honestly might not have even noticed if it hadn't become a thing online. I might have. I thought it was close enough. Really, I didn't go back and look or whatever. I think they actually redid his lines from his last appearance here to use in the teaser, in like the trailer for last week. I thought he was fine. I thought he did a good job. I really enjoyed it. I feel bad for him. He had to do a lot of running.
Yeah, but he also memorized a pretty awesome jingle there. And
we'll get to the end. He got to drive fucking Sammy Hagar. I was like, all right, he must have been born in Nebraska or something like that. From what I can tell, he just randomly got to drive Sammy Hagar. Again, that must be something from the writer, right? Who just really has a thing for Sammy Hagar or whatever. Maybe they just wanted to use the can't drive joint like that because Gene makes that joke or whatever.
Right. Just
fairly random reference.
Yeah. I guess it could have been, what else could they have done? The Wallflowers, one headlight? I don't know. What's that?
They pick up Jacob Dylan.
Yeah.
Instead of Bob Dylan, I picked up Jacob Dylan.
I picked up Mr. Dylan. Bob? Well, not quite. We're talking about not Mr. Rolling Stone, but Mr. One Headlight, Jacob Dylan. It's a close second, Mills. One could say. Let's move on.
Not Andy. Was it Andy Garcia's brother?
Yeah. No, Barry Garcia.
Barry Garcia. Yeah, maybe I would have been there for Barry Garcia.
Definitely been there for Barry Garcia in the pouch. Mills, you talked about earlier what a big deal Carol Burnett is. How do you think she did as Marion? Did you enjoy this role, this character? I don't know about you, but she reminds me of an old lady from my hometown. She just it just has that feel a little bit. So, and again, we've seen Jimmy be so great with the elderly, and he really bonds with these old people, and it's endearing, and it's a thing that draws you to him as a character. It makes total sense to me that he was able to do that and do it so well. And I did enjoy the line where he's like,
I know it's awkward, right? But you don't have to call me dad yet.
That's just such a big dick thing to say to somebody when you're trying to get leverage, and you can because it makes sense. So shout out to Gene laying it on. Mean Gene, baby.
Oh yeah, there were a couple of great exchanges in there because this was Gene in full hustle mode, right? When he's trying to basically sell Jeff on why he's not going to turn him in. And you have to assume obviously that that Gene did a little bit of legwork here. That's how he knows obviously who his mother is, where they live, that she used a scooter. He knows all these things in advance. So he's obviously put some work in before all of this. I don't know if he has a picture with Post-it notes on the back. Maybe we'll see it. Maybe we don't. And I do like when he's trying to sell him, he even calls him Jeffy, and he does it a few more times throughout the episode. Like Gene definitely knows that he's clearly, superior to Jeff. So he doesn't really seem to be worried about Jeff here so much as he is maybe worried about just getting caught overall. And we kind of see that because after this scene, Gene goes home, pours himself a drink, and he's listening to the police scanner. And he's listening for a minute, and he gets out a hidden box. We see some pictures or whatever, but then he pulls out Marco's pinky ring. He looks at it for a moment, he puts it on, has a drink, shuts off the scanner, and he seems like ready to do this thing, for lack of a better way to say it.
Wasn't it nice to see him kind of back in a little bit? Like it's nice to see him have a little bravado, a little confidence, for Christ's sakes. I mean, I enjoy it when he look at that ring, man, and it kind of it motivated him. I mean, I thought it was cool. Any thoughts on what might else be in that box?
Did he keep the black book? I mean, it's got to be something small enough to fit in there. Obviously didn't keep the topper because that ended up there, unless they never got another bottle, so we have to assume that was that original topper. I don't know what else he could have in there. Obviously, I guess maybe he had the disappearer card, but that's off the table now, so probably just pictures of Kim, you have to guess, for the most part, right?
Yeah.
But I gotta say, when he did put on the pinky ring, my first thought was fucking Stallone and Over the Top turning his hat around, like getting into the fucking character, like to get ready to arm wrestle. It was like, it was between that and one of the Captain Planet Planeteers, so take your pick.
Bro, when Sly turned that hat around, shit was about to go on, dude. All of a sudden he started like just oiling, his body just became oiled.
I still have a hand exerciser in my car because of that movie. Well, dude, I still use that joke.
Was Jimmy just drinking vodka and lemon juice here? What do you, any guess on what that drink was? He squirted
pretty
something.
I thought it was lemon juice, not lime juice, but again, we're in black and white here, so it was tough to tell. I did think it was a dark liquor, but that's all I could really make out.
It might have been rum and lemon or tequila and lemon or something. Who knows?
Or something that's really cheap, so you just got to put something in it to bear it.
Yeah.
Either that or your taste buds are wrecked after peach schnapps.
That may be true too. So does Gene have all the money? That's always the thing that I want to know too. Like, and that's where you could kind of be like, okay, I wish they would have, and maybe they'll come back with another Gene episode, but just like, what happened, between now and when Saul first disappeared as Gene? Like, where did
we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later, or make some predictions about it. I would be surprised if we get like a Gene. Maybe that's how we get some of that context in like from the Breaking Bad timeline or something, and they don't count it in the Gene timeline yet because it's transition or what have you. So maybe that's something we'll see. Something we can talk about in predictions, definitely.
After closing at Cinnabon, Gene makes a change. Instead of heading home, he heads to the security office. After hesitating outside the door for a moment, he finally knocks on the door, which is answered by Nick. We know Nick from back in season 3 when we saw him arresting a shoplifter. Gene apologizes for telling the shoplifter to call a lawyer and orders food from Cinnabon as a way to say thanks. Nick lets him in and we meet Frank, the guard who watches the cameras. Nick leaves to patrol the lot and Frank talks with Gene about Nebraska football while eating his Cinnabon. Gene notes that it takes him about 3 minutes to finish. It was funny to me too, just for a second, when Nick was like, yeah, I remember you. Get a lawyer. Because for a minute, it's kind of like, oh shit, does he remember that it's Saul? So it was kind of cool. And then it brought me back to that scene with the shoplifter. Like, it was kind of a cool way to bring it back a little bit.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Although you could have argued he should have said lawyer up. That would fit with the license plate or whatever. Same thing. It's not that. I think that at that time felt like more of a thing, like how he still tried to respect the law a little bit to make Chuck proud and stuff like that. And he even says, like, oh, sorry about the lawyer thing. It just slipped out. And that's just a little bit like, that's like slipping Jimmy and Saul the lawyer. I don't know, as he say, like, sorry about, like, I don't know. It just felt like a little, like the writers having a little fun here, a little play on words, kind of. It made me laugh a little bit.
Well, and it seems like maybe it's a little bit, this was kind of interesting too, because it's weird with black and white. So, it's like, I can't tell, like, but it looks like, as far as like remembering people and stuff, but it does, the way it seems like, especially when Jimmy's like, well, Nick did me a solid when I fainted. It seemed like it was pretty recent, right? Like maybe Jimmy used the, like, and then it got me thinking, was the faint a setup for this?
Well, he fainted in one of the Gene scenes that we had before. Remember, he got taken to the hospital and then they were trying to run his social security and it wasn't working and he got all nervous and shit. And then it finally worked. And then he was like, oh, kid. And then he got in the taxi cab and then he saw the, Jeff with the, the isotopes hanger. So he definitely fainted for real. It wasn't a setup because he fainted before he ever, met Jeff.
I see.
I was waiting to see where Jim O'Hare would come in, and I just hear, "Do I detect Cinnabons?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, that's fucking Jerry, dude." If you watched Parks and Rec, you're gonna get a little bit more out of this episode. Like, I think when it comes to grading it, I'm tacking on a couple, at least extra tenths of points here because, gotta love Jerry, dude. He is. Minor spoilers for Parks and Rec. Sorry, it's a comedy. You should have watched it if you haven't by now. That's not on me.
It was slightly uncomfortable for me here to watch Frank eat this thing. At times it was just a bit much, like him eating the Cinnabon. I was surprised with the fork and knife because the way he goes at it, he goes in, he's licking fingers, he's smacking, he's all in. But then the fork and knife really kind of threw me off. And the way Saul was watching it and equally as weirded out about it, it took me a minute to catch the con here, which is what a good con's supposed to do. For a minute, I was like, is there something in there? Is he gonna faint? Like, what's happening? Did he poison it? And the fact that it was black and white made it look weird. It was not like a great thing for me to watch this guy eat the Cinnabon. Mills, am I losing it here? Or am I just weird or what?
I think my guess is, I mean, this is Michelle McLaren and that she's so good. Like, they're shooting this thing. It's so interesting. We're talking about how this dude is eating his Cinnabon, but it was almost like a little sinister because there was definitely a bit where I'm like, oh shit, is Saul's plan to try to give this guy a heart attack or something? Or make him like have to call the hospital or something? Like, or is he's going to poison Cinnabon at some point, or I don't really know. That's kind of where I was going with it. I mean, my guess is when he went in there, he maybe knew that Frank was a bigger guy, but the Cinnabon was legitimately a peace offering, and he was just going to try to get in and then figure out what he could what he could do. And then when he saw the way he ate the Cinnabon, not only did he eat it, he turned his back to the monitors. And then that's when you see him like start the clock on his watch. I don't think that was the initial plan. I think just once he started doing that, he's like, oh shit, this might take a minute. Let's see where this goes. That's kind of how I read it. And once he realized it was like a full 3 minutes and you see him looking at the monitors, trying to figure out, what kind of they can see and everything like that. So I think his basic plan was still just to get in there and then see what the weak points were. And that was Cinnabon happened to be the way in and the weak point.
Absolutely. And the whole don't tell my wife, and I haven't had one of these in forever. And then well, Frank, you're gonna be having quite a bit of them.
Oh, and that's then again a Parks and Rec thing too, because his wife's like completely beautiful and all the women always love him and everything. So I swear that the writers are definitely making some Parks and Rec callbacks here. And you do hear him talking about football. In this, actually, between this and we see a little bit later a newspaper, we can determine that this is taking place during October 2010. And Saul most likely got with the disappearer sometime in April 2010. So he has not been there a long time. So even if he did, faint a couple of months ago, after he first got there, still not that long ago. He's probably only been there for roughly 6 months, maybe even only 4 or 5 months.
Wow. See, that's a really interesting development there, because it kind of
they did that deliberately. They talked about real football games. They showed a date on the newspaper. So this is the show going out of their way to tell us specifically where we are in the timeline. So that has to mean something. Either that or someone really likes Nebraska football, maybe a little column A and a little column B.
So those were actual players that they were Martinez.
Yeah, Brandon Weeden, remember he's drafted by the Browns.
Yep. Brandon Weeden. Yep. Wow. Another long line of.
I wasted about a half hour looking at all these football stats and everything, and then I looked online and people had already figured it out already. I did put in the work, but again, internet is very fast. There's always someone who's just so on top of that stuff. So whoever you are that was first to figure that out, kudos to you.
Mills, just for shits and gigs, when did the Breaking Bad finale happen to end? Like, when was that time?
I think the events of the finale take place from like September 4th to September 7th, 2010. So this is only roughly 5-6 weeks after the finale of Breaking Bad. So, but another, the Walter White was probably back in the news again. We saw Gene, make some friends at the security office. Now we move into a montage where Gene continues to visit the security office every night after work. He always brings him Cinnabon. He studies up on his Nebraska football, gets him closer to Frank, and Gene confirms that it takes Frank roughly 3 minutes to finish the Cinnabon, thus creating a window of opportunity. There's a great line here where Frank says, "I can smell you coming up the hallway," and Gene's like, "Oh, I get that all the time." I know Gene's nervous about the hospital and stuff, but he should really get that checked out.
Yeah, you shouldn't be smelling coming up the hallway in a mall. I mean, there's a lot of smells in a mall, for Christ's sakes. If you're standing out, might not be a good thing. Not a ton here. I mean, I like the little ongoing stuff of Gene's confidence building. The first time you kind of like was scared to look at the guy, buffing out the floors. Man, by the time we get to this scene, he's fucking whistling Dixie. He's got a little swagger. He's full on waving to people. I like the development of Gene's confidence here, coming back a little bit. He's getting a little bravado.
They did a good job of, they don't know how long this takes place over. Actually, we can make a guess. It's only really a few days for the most part, based on the football, actually probably a few weeks based on the football games they talk about. They did a nice job of showing here, like, he gets in there, he starts out, he's drinking coffee from a paper cup, he graduates to a mug. And then like you see him, they're playing like fake football. They're opening, like he starts out having to like, wave into the camera and then just knocking. And then finally he just walks to the door and he hears the buzz to unlock it. And as they were doing it, it wasn't quite like a comic book panels, but you saw they kept framing the scene in different ways. So you'd see maybe 1 to 4 different things going on at one time. And they would keep kind of changing both in the layout and the ratio of them. It was really interesting, and it kind of made the montage move. And they also used Jim on the Move, actually, by Lala Sherfrin. And he's kind of notable because he's the dude who wrote the Mission Impossible joint that I can't even.
Oh yeah.
Like you two couldn't even really, it's Mission Impossible. They're like, it's kind of gives you that particular music. It's like a 5/4, which kind of like, it's a very kind of like heist movie, montage-y tempo. And I thought it worked really well here, along with the, kind of the visuals we got. I do want to say that, they did it in Breaking Bad, but officially on Better Call Saul, we had a cooking montage. It happened, dude. We got a cooking montage.
Yeah.
So I guess we're, cross off seeing Cranston show up and say, "Let's cook." I don't, maybe if he showed up like a Star Wars Force Ghost at Cinnabon and just said, "Let's cook" to Gene when he was cooking that would have been the wildest way. Like they said, no one had predicted any of the cameos. That's one no one would have called, probably.
No. And I gotta hand it to him, man. He looked like he knew what was doing, dude. Like he kind of owns that kitchen, and he's so respectful to his coworkers. Like, you gotta give it to Gene, man. And he doesn't skimp on the frosting, bro. That's what I like about it. I like it when you don't skimp on the frosting. Don't thin me out. I don't want to see the top of the Cinnabon. I just want to see white.
No, 2 things there. I guess number 1, you're pitching for Odenkirk to be on season 2 of The Bear. I mean, he's open for work now. I am there for that. And 2, Bob Odenkirk actually did get some training from Cinnabon.
Wow.
It's a ball job, so I'm picturing he could probably do the whole training thing in maybe a day or something. But I think that's why he does seem so good at it, just like how Patrick Fabian, who played Howard, actually made the latte with the peace sign and whatnot.
Yeah, a lot of pride taken in that. Very cool scene. From there, we see Gene walks around the mall figuring out the optimal way to use the 3-minute window of opportunity. He notes where the most expensive merchandise is and measures how many paces it is between the various product displays. I thought this was kind of cool because you're still kind of seeing this thing develop a little bit. At this time, I'm still not 100% sure. I've got clues. I'm thinking about it. I'm kind of seeing the tea leaves a little bit, but I'm not 100% sure on what's going on here. This was another cool kind of development with what's playing out with the con. This show has shown that they can do a con that stretches basically half a fucking season, or they can do one that's pretty badass in one episode. I'd love to see them just do a whole show of just nothing, where like each episode's a new con. Like, that's fucking cool. But
so you want to get the Better Call Saul cast to do Ocean's 14, basically, is what you're saying here.
Dude, or like a Scooby-Doo, like something like that, like a Scooby-Doo con thing would be like very cool, dude. Like,
I just, in my head, I could just hear Casey Kasem's voice being like, "This week, Scooby and the gang meet Jimmy McGill." And I could picture it back on the New Adventures, the new Scooby-Doo movies, which was my favorite, when they'd always meet the Harlem Globetrotters and the monkeys and Sonny and Cher and Laurel and Hardy. And Yeah, that would have been pretty cool.
Well, they could meet Sammy Hagar and and Jimmy McGill, the Red Rocker. How was he?
Oh,
Sorry, I can't get over.
and shout out anybody who would willingly let their nickname be that close to Red Rocket. No offense, Andy Dalton. I just think it's South Park Red Rocket episode. Sorry.
Oh, that's Red Rocket.
Yeah, not a lot there really. It was just a good time, but then we see that he used what he learned to construct a mock-up of the the department store there and where the various displays are. He's in a field, he puts sticks up and they use ribbons to kind of make basically what looks like a little kind of maze joint. And the plan is for Jeff to run product to product, grabbing 3 of each, all within the 3-minute window. Jeff is skeptical of the plan, and Gene tries to convince him by telling him the story of Walter White.
50-year-old high school chemistry teacher comes into my office. The guy is so broke, he can't pay his own mortgage. 1 year later, he's got a pile of cash as big as a Volkswagen. That's crazy.
Jeff's friend says that he's in, which makes Jeff decide to go along as well. Gene makes Jeff practice running from place to place in the mock-up, while Gene yells out a rhyme meant to remind Jeff what to grab. And there are some fun ones.
1, Armani suits and run. 2, Air Jordan shoes for you. 3, linen shirts for free. 4, cashmere sweaters out the door. 5, Patagonia.
I have to say,
6,
of all that,
sweatsuits in the mix.
are we really there for linen shirts? Does that fit with everything else that's there?
Linen shirts for 3.
Am I missing?
I don't know
I'm
what
not
that was
that
doing there.
fashion forward. I mean, linen shirts. I think like tablecloths and shit.
I mean, it's a thing. Like linen shirts are a thing for sure, but it must have just been. And again, this is a spoiler show. Later on, when we actually see Jeff doing out this con, they're right there. So it's like all these things are right in line. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe it was the next, stepping point in line of where he was going. And we see he goes much, much further than 6. I'm there for swanky sweatsuits in the mix, bro. That's me all day. I would wear those in the court of law, Magnum.
I have to say, the Air Jordans, I guess they're not in box, so maybe not. I was gonna say they'd probably hold the most value, but yeah, and shout out Paulie Walnuts. So I would cop the swanky sweatsuits too. The shout out Paulie Walnuts. And you do hear a couple of quotes here, like one when Gene says, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. It's fairly common, but I feel like I've heard that in football a bunch. So I feel when he's doing all this reading up on Nebraska and everything, he picked that up somewhere. And then he kind of, says, "Are you in or out?" And I just got serious, like Back to the Future vibes. Like you get that every movie from like Biff Tannen, from Griff Tannen. I don't know, for some reason. I don't know if that's what they're going for or not, but that's what I got.
I think this type of practice would be useful, bro. Like, I think this paid dividends. Although the one thing I will say is, like, how the hell you're asking to slip? You're out there running in snow and ice in the field, and you're gonna slip like, come on, Jeff, you got to be better than that, man. That pisses me off, Mills.
I have to say that, after we see the practice here, which was again very entertaining, I think it would have been helpful if maybe they put pictures of what the products were. Probably would have been unnecessary and unrealistic, but from a visual standpoint, I think maybe it would have helped us as viewers. But we see after that, we meet Kathy, who's the manager of the department store, and she's walking around. She actually notes the spot on the floor where Jeff is going to trip and wants to get that floor polisher we saw earlier over there. Apparently doesn't make it on time. Then someone comes up to Kathy and says, "Hey, there's a delivery here." And she goes to get the delivery, and we find out that it's Jeff's friend. He showed up at the dock of the store with a delivery that's supposed to, says it's going to go there on the paper, but it's stuff that, not necessarily for a department store. Kathy is not happy, so she gets the paper, she calls the supervisor, and supervisor's phone ring. Guess what? Gene is the supervisor. It's his burner phone. He answers, pretending to, be very concerned about what's going on. He apologizes for the mistake and convinces Kathy to let them leave the crate that was delivered incorrectly there until tomorrow morning. I'm not even going to bother with what's in the box because Jeff's in the box. There's a Jeff in a box. Shout out Elsa James. It's definitely a little bit sinister because Saul's trying to, Gene is trying to get his ass out of trouble here. But on the other hand, this is when some people thought Better Call Saul was originally going to be more of a broad comedic show. This isn't, slapstick sitcom funny, but you do have a dude kind of running around like a maniac and whatnot and slipping on the floor. And so it's a little bit slapsticky, and I'm there for it. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I would have wanted this to be the entire run of Better Call Saul, but I'm down with mixing it in here.
Good with the mix, bro. Dude, could there really be 900 pounds of Spanish mackerel at the airport? I mean, 900 pounds of Spanish mackerel? It's just
That's
almost
so
a metric
wildly
ton.
specific. You feel like it was a case he was involved with at some point, right? Or something like he had actual, at some point he was suing some, grocery store over this shipment that arrived spoiled or something like that. It's just in his head.
And I'll say again, just kind of going with the theme as we see Gene evolve into, kind of if it's been 7-8 months that he's been Gene now. I mean, he's had that thing muffled, right? And it's nice to see Gene having some fun here, kind of running the show, doing his thing, and working cons, bro. I mean, that's what he does, dude. So like to see that from our guy Gene, even with that kick-ass stash.
I haven't seen if he has his top down, but he does have his jewelry on, so maybe he is just doing his thing. Shout out Swizz Beats. Swizzy.
After closing, see Gene heads up to the security and continues his usual routine. Once Frank begins to eat, Gene texts "go" to Jeff, who, as we all guessed, yes, is hiding in the crate. Jeff races around, grabbing the items and reciting Gene's training. It's looking good, but at the very end, Jeff slips and falls, and I mean hard. Homie bit it. I guess he better call Saul. Damn, it just writes itself. Gene sees this on the monitor and buys time for Jeff by distracting Frank with this really sad sob story about his love, his life, his lack thereof, everything to do with making a good life and a good deal, which unfortunately is actually true. He gives Jeff enough time to stash the stolen items in the crate and hides in the bathroom. Gene apologizes to Frank for his outburst and heads out. And I will say, I like where Gene was like, at the end of all this, he's like going side to side to just watch this thing get through. But great acting by Odenkirk. I like the line, like, you're not going to promise me you won't tell Nick. Because, we don't want Nick knowing that, Gene had a moment of depressed thoughts or anything. So
that felt both real to the character and real to the lie. So I think on both levels, he really didn't want Nick to find out about that. I have to say that I think there's some not quite maybe Tropic Thunder level method acting going here, but I think Gene got so into his role in researching the Cornhuskers so hard. I think he's a fan. He doesn't just sound like he's memorizing stuff now. Like he sounds like he might actually care.
Yeah, he's doing it really well. And how fitting would that be in the end if he just roots for the I mean, because how many times did we see Kim wearing the Nebraska sweatshirt and stuff? So love the tiebacks there, Mills. And yeah, I think he's rooting, man. I think he's part of the team now, part of the squad.
And one last note on the football stuff. I'm definitely there with Team Frank on the luxury suites. There are just stadiums are now the same size, but there's far less seating, but far more luxury suites. I'm cool, but I'm not that cool. So can we have some more affordable type seats where you can actually see the field and everything? With you on that there, Frank. And I really loved the camera work when Jeff's running around grabbing shit. I thought that was really great. It was very visceral and it felt very kind of the way it was shot felt real. Sometimes the stuff can feel kind of staged or whatever, especially I think the way the actor was running, it felt really convincing. And we got some more lines here. So we left at 6, right? Lay them out for us. We left at 6. And now we have 7. Spendy dresses sent from heaven. 9. Pricey lingerie is mine. 10. Casket briefcases for men. 12. Luxury pumps to unshell. 18. Kate Spade's queen. 19. Calvin's leather's on the scene. 20. Uggs look funny. And I was going to say they were losing steam. I feel like they went all the way to 20 just to get the Uggs line. I feel like that's why they skipped. Was like, all right, we got the Uggs. Like they probably wrote 35 of these or something or whatever, some kind of number and then try to pick the best ones. But yeah, the calfskin briefcases for men is just kind of a mouthful. 10 is so short. 10 is short, so you need the extra syllables. I understand why they did it from a rhythmic standpoint. It just calfskin briefcases just sounds like the Wu-Tang record we never got.
Is that the one that the dude that freaking Skrillin bought?
No, that came back around. Someone else bought it now. I forget. That's a tale from a different time, but I would like to hear that one, the Shaolin joint, the was it like one year in Shaolin or something like that? It'll be on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. So there's a little advantage to watching on the YouTube.
But dude, that fall, like not only did it look, I felt it, I heard it. I mean, that was a straight up bone and head hitting thud. Damn, yo, Jeff, and the way Jeff just laid there fucking lifeless, I was like, oh shit, dude, he might be like,
The immediate comp that jumped to mind for me is the episode of Always Sunny where Mac has to try to go make a goal at the Flyers game, and he like thinks he scores it and everything, but then you really get what actually happened, and Charlie's like, oh yeah, you're gonna be on ESPN, like right in the the blooper section or whatever. Yeah, it just kept, and I thought they did a good job too drawing out Saul's kind of, Gene, I'm gonna do that a couple of times when he's kind of doing his thing where he's confessing a bit, and it starts out really fake, the crying and everything. I think, deliberately fake, but then the more he kind of incorporates real stuff, like once he starts talking about his brother, that's when it gets real. But then they keep showing the monitors behind Frank, and it keeps taking longer and longer. So Gene has to keep kind of stretching, and like every time that Frank's about to turn around, he's got to like start going over the top again. I thought it went on for just long enough. I thought there was a good direction, solid editing right there to make it just long enough to be uncomfortable, but not so long that it was really unbelievable.
And the cool thing about this in terms of just like the storyline, it was so weird there and awkward with Frank and Gene that maybe now it gives Gene an out to not show up with any more Cinnabon. Like maybe he doesn't have to like continue that, maybe he wants to just go and talk about Nebraska football, but I think it gives him a little bit of an out if he kind of slows his roll on going and hanging out and bringing the Cinnabon.
I think you're absolutely correct, but I don't know. He might be that into Nebraska football now. He just wants to show up and chat. Did you have a particular favorite? We got, a bunch of the, the kind of numbers and whatnots, the stolen items. Did you have any that was a particular favorite that you remember jumping out at you?
I like the Jordan's line. I thought that was funny back in the first six, but I really like the Calvin Klein's leather on the scene, dude. That one, that Calvin leathers on the scene made me laugh. And luxury pumps to unshelf was probably my favorite though.
Yeah, I actually liked that. There were the early couple. One, Armani suits and run. I thought because again, it kind of fitted with what he's doing with the running, and then 4 cashmere sweaters out the door. That just has perfect rhythmic, like that flows so well. I don't know about Patagonia's to survive. I think they're fine, but I don't know if they're necessary to survival. And we didn't get a few numbers. We're missing 8, 11, and 13 through 17. Give me one of those that might work. I will go off the top of my head. 8, fucking Crocs are great. I don't think they make a lot of money for the Crocs, but they brought up the Uggs, so I'm bringing in the Crocs.
Hey man, I would have liked 8. Grab the Gucci and get out the gate. Might be a little wordy, but I thought that was. But hey, man, I think it could work.
8 fucking Gucci is great. Or damn Gucci is great. Goddamn Gucci is great.
Either way, they already did the heaven thing with 7, so I think 11 was probably difficult to figure out. 17 is a weird one just because it's a mouthful. I think that would be tough, but I felt like they could have done something with 8 for sure. That was an easy one. It makes you wonder too, like they mentioned a couple of brands. Do you think they had to pay Kate Spade? Like, do you think they had to pay for some of these references, or were they able to just kind of pull them off in there?
Dude, at this point, I'm assuming those brands are tweeting the references and thanking them for the free promotion. They might even get some free swag.
Might even get a little bit of free swag coming in. From this great scene, Magnum Mills, we go to the next morning. We see Kathy open the store, and she seems none the wiser here. Jeff walks out of the bathroom and proceeds nervously towards the exit while pretending to casually browse. Kathy asks him if he needs help with anything. He brushes her off. As he's leaving, Jeff overhears that the delivery man picked up the crate, and he can't help but smile. Did he even bring flowers? Was that a little Saul Goodman touch there? Yeah.
Yep. Remember when he was playing Mr. Supervisor, he did say that I'll even send flowers. And she says, oh, that's not necessary, but thank you. He does anyways, because that's Gene always making sure to go, maybe learn it from Mike. No half measures, full measure
Half
here.
measures.
And I love Jeff walking out. And you would think that, oh, maybe that's a little bit too over the top. But I had 2 thoughts here. I'm like, all right, he was in the bathroom all night, but he couldn't really just stand there, right? So my guess is he went into a stall, closed the door, and was like perched on the toilet. That could definitely, for doing that for 6-7 hours, that cannot be comfortable. I mean, maybe he could
After
like
taking a fall, bro.
Maybe he could sit on, after the fall and sitting on the tank. And this is actually from the Better Call Saul Insider podcast. That director Michelle McLaren said that she literally told the actor here, Pat Healy, to walk like he had hemorrhoids. I think he pulled it off based on his direction. I think he nailed it.
He did, and I like the bags under the eyes. At first, it was almost like, man, does he have a little bit of a concussion here, the way he looked? So I thought they did a good job with that. Like, he just looked very disheveled, and they created that tension when she came up and asked him and tried to, he wouldn't even look her in the eye. It's like, dude, try not to be so sketch, bro. Jeffy, you're screwing this up. But it played in, it tracked really well with just kind of like how shitty of a night that must have been after taking that major fucking fall.
And while we're at it, he was kind of hidden in the stall there. What is the most awkward place you've had to hide for an extended period of time? Like, was it during hide and seek? Did the girl's husband come home running from Rocco at the down in the corner or what have you? I don't know, man. Weirdest place you've had to hide for, say at least an hour?
Well, there's been a lot, Magnum Mills, unfortunately, and without incriminating myself or anyone else, I will plead the fifth.
The correct answer is the back of a Volkswagen. That's not really a long scene, but they do a great job with it, and both kind of showing how nervous Jeff is when he's walking out to how satisfied he is when he hears that they pulled it off. After that's completed, the mall heist gang gathers in Jeff's garage and they survey their treasure. Gene informs Jeff and his friend, credited as Jeff's friend, of the severity of the crimes that they just committed. If they attempt to turn Gene in, he will turn them in. So we've got a mutually assured destruction situation going on here. He forces Jeff to say that they're done, and he prepares to leave. Before he can do so, Marion calls out for Gene after spotting his car, and she heads towards the garage on her scooter. When she opens the door, the three guys are looking at Jeff's car, apparently trying to figure out what's wrong with it. Might be something with the master cylinder. Marion insists that Gene comes inside to wash up, and he does. She admits to him that Jeff fell in with a bad crowd back in Albuquerque, and she thinks that Gene is good for him. She asks about Nippy, and Gene tells her that he's great. He was found with a loving family right nearby.
You wouldn't even believe it. And you got to love the little stalls, almost like he forgot about Nippy. And oh, yeah, right, Nippy. I thought that was a nice little work there by Mean Gene. I'm happy there was a happy ending here, right? I mean, who doesn't love a good happy? Everyone loves a happy ending, but it was nice to get one here because I just don't know. In the fact that we hear Odenkirk, as Gene even say, so a happy ending after all. I don't know that we're actually going to get the happy ending we want as fans of this show. So it was kind of neat to see that here in that choice of vernacular for them to use, like actually happy ending. Because I think that's on a lot of fans' mind with the show is like, can we get a happy ending? I think everyone accepted with Walt because Walt was such a horrible person in the Breaking Bad world that it's like, okay, we're probably not going to get a happy ending with Walt, and that's okay. But with I think with Saul, like is he more endearing? Like, I think so, right? I just, it was easier to see something bad happen to Walt than it will be to see something bad happen to Saul, in my opinion.
And I think you see a lot of that here, in that, especially in the final scene with Marion, because there's a couple exchanges between them when she talks about Jeff falling into the bad crowd. Gene's like, "Oh, Albuquerque, huh? Never been." And Marion says, "Lucky you." Maybe he thinks about sometimes, right? What happens if he had never gone to Albuquerque? You have to think that at least crosses his mind. And then just a hot minute later, she says, "You're a good influence, Gene." Think about that into the context of the last conversation he had with Kim, where she made it clear just how bad, not just him, but them together as, they were as an influence. So I think that is a very deliberate line here. So although you kind of feels like, maybe it's a happy ending, maybe it's more of the Scooby-Doo ending. Shout out Wayne's World. Goddamn old man Withers in his haunted amusement park. But I did like that garage scene. That was about the toughest we've seen Gene be. Was like, "I need to hear you say it." That's a Mike line. He's definitely playing Mike there, I think is what he's doing. He's literally trying to channel Mike Ehrmantraut.
Oh yeah, and he basically laid down the law there. And dude, how sad was Jeff? I felt like Jeff was like riding high. He was like, he wanted to be, tight with Gene here a little bit. And shit, man, right as he's just kind of looking at the bounty and feeling good about himself, Gene comes and just smacks that shit down. I mean, pun intended, he nipped it.
In the bud, so to speak. I mean, you get the feeling it like if you'd go the scene had gone on 2 minutes more doing well. Jeff was about to rip out the template for the matching Mulheist gang tattoos he wanted them all to get together. So you do have to think, and we'll save it
the
for predictions a
references.
little bit, but you have to think, right? Like Jeff, he just wet his beak a little bit. I don't know, man. I think he might want more of this. We'll have to talk about this, but I don't know that maybe Gene got away as cleanly as he thinks he might have.
I'm not so sure he did, and I think this is going to be something where maybe, just maybe, it ends up biting him here in the end. Talk more about that as we get to our predictions. Please keep listening because we love you. Thoughts on just on Gene and Marion here, right? I mean, she certainly wants. She's going to have a tough time if Gene stops showing up.
Gene is, again, kind of on the island here, but he makes some real relationships in this episode. Both, I think, with Frank and Nick, and here with Marion, and even unintentionally with Jeff. Although I feel like maybe like Jeff's friend, maybe they could just squeeze Jeff out. I feel like Jeff's friend might be all right. Like they could maybe like he could be on like the equivalent of like I saw had like the gang of like camera dudes or Huel or something like that. Maybe not Huel level, but whatever is like below Huel level, something like that. Maybe they got to wet their beaks, but like, does Jeff really like? Does he have a fence? Does he know how to use eBay? Like I'm betting money he's just gonna wind up keeping most of the shit for himself.
Yeah, or even be stupid or take it to the local pawn shop or something. I mean, I could see that.
Trying to return it for store credit.
Yeah. I don't have the receipt. Yeah, I mean that's just
although maybe 2010, I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, they probably would have been caught if I don't know if they could trace individual line or just ISBN.
We'll see what happens with that, Mills. From there, we're back at the Cinnabon, baby, and we see Gene is still rocking that pinky ring, and he seems to be enjoying his work quite a bit more than he used to. Seems to be a little bit of a groove going here. He scopes out the store they hit while he's on the lunch break. There, he picks out a very Saul Goodman-esque tie and shirt combination. I mean, you could say it screams Saul Goodman. He holds it up in the mirror, thinking about it, but after a long moment, he puts it back on the rack and walks away. Did you feel a little bit here for Saul? I mean, that has to be so hard, and the show has done a great job of showing what his life was, albeit without Kim. But the gold fucking shower, the massive crib, all the money, he was in all his glory. To just walk away from that and be Gene at the Cinnabon, tough pill to swallow. This must have been a moment for him, right?
Yes and no. Like he puts it down, and I think you could view that as is he really finally putting Saul to rest or something, and maybe he's gonna go back more to Jimmy. And that kind of comes down to, what do you think of the ring? Like, does the pinky ring symbolize Jimmy and Saul, or just Jimmy and Saul, or is that just the part of Jimmy that was always a part of Saul, and now he's just trying to keep certain parts or something like that? It's going to be really interesting to see what they do going forward. But I think there is a chance that we're never, outside of scenes set during Breaking Bad, I don't think we're going to get to see Gene in a nice suit at some point, especially because it probably would not pop in the black and white. But it is interesting to note that a lot of the season promo shots were kind of like the black and white shot with the very colored red jacket and everything like that. So I don't know, maybe we will see a splash of color in the end in the Gene. Maybe we finally see Kim at the end and she's in color and everything else is in black and white or something like that.
Like where you're going with it, Mills. I think he keeps the pinky ring on, bro, personally. I mean, I know he doesn't want to attract any attention to himself, but he is a different Gene with that pinky ring. I am not as bold as Saul Goodman with my dressing. I mean, that tie shirt combo was loud, but he could have pulled it. He could have pulled it off. Could Saul Goodman have done the Gene stash? Could he have had the mustache? I don't know.
Not with his haircut. That mustache would not fit with that haircut.
I didn't think so.
I just don't think so. And I will say that the shirt was very like patterned. Like I remember him wearing loud stuff, but like and very like patterned ties, but not really patterned shirts. I remember mostly being like solids, like just loud solids, big collars, that kind of thing.
Yeah, different white collar and the different color shirt, and just his ties were very loud, and his suits, like the colors were loud. But you're right, there wasn't a lot of patterns there. But hey, that's the best he could find. But it was enough from a viewership standpoint to be like, damn, that's some Saul Goodman shit right there.
We touched on it briefly, but this entire episode was in black and white. That's something that is very rarely done. Off the top of my head, I think an episode of Twin Peaks: The Return was in black and white. I know back in the day they did an X-Files episode, but I mean, start to finish, entirely in black and white. Again, we were used to the Gene thing, but never for this long. And I have to say, maybe a little bit at the beginning when I'm trying to figure out what people are drinking and that kind of thing, you miss the color a little bit. But I would say probably, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes in, I didn't notice for the rest of the time that it was in black and white for the most part. Any thoughts on, just I guess the artistic choice to do the entire episode black and white?
A couple of things. One, if you were to tell me like, hey, watch an episode of a show you really love and it's going to be in black and white, I'd be like, dude, I don't want to do that. That sucks. But with that said, I like that they chose to do it, because every time we've saw Gene, right, and been in the Gene timeline, it's been in black and white. So I think it was important that they had to continue that. And I like that they did. It was bold to do it for the entire episode, but by golly, if we were going to get a full Gene episode, then the son of a bitch had to be in black and white. On the surface, I am anti black and white. I think it sucks. I'm losing a whole sensory that I want, right, with vision, but it worked for me, dude. And to your point, we started getting into like the Frank eating the Cinnabon shit, and it's like I just kind of stopped. I kind of forgot a little bit. And it reminds me of one time I had too much to drink and I watched the entire Hateful Eight in black and white, thinking it was actually done in black and white, only to wake up the next day with a raging headache and realize that, why did I just watch like an extended version Quentin Tarantino joint in black and white?
I mean, you can make the argument that some movies show up very well in that. I think I actually remember watching black and white Pulp Fiction in black and white. I thought was pretty good. I'm trying to think of recent movies. I know they did the Snyder Cut thing in black and white. I didn't watch that, but Logan, the last Wolverine movie, they did a noir cut, I believe, of that was black and white. It was kind of like that old Western feel. I thought that was pretty cool. But I think you're right for the most part. I think you could hold it up for maybe, like a 22, 30-minute kind of deal. But, you extend it out into an hour or something like that, you do lose a little bit visually. Yeah, it's not a well I'd go to all the time, but I think they pretty much did it as well as you possibly can here.
Agreed there, Magnum Mills. And normally here on the Saul Over Soon podcast, it would be time for Never Doubt Ehrmantraut. But shit, dude, our man Mike was nowhere to be seen in this episode. And Mills, this was the 60th episode of Saul. 60th episode of Saul. And the first one to not have our boy Mike Ehrmantraut. How do we feel about this lack of Mike? It's a goddamn travesty to not have Mike in there, right?
We want maximum Mike, right? Like, more Mike is the best Mike. As much Mike as you can give me. If she didn't say it, that's what she should be saying. But considering that nobody in the main cast besides Bob Odenkirk is in this episode, I gotta say, as odd as it is, you have Carol Burnett here as Marion. In like, I don't know, I get a Jonathan Banks as Mike vibe from her. Like, I feel like, if Mike had ever have found love, like, Marion would have been a good fit for him, right? Like, she's this tough old bird. She's probably got some good stories. She like a little drink and some music. I don't know. She just, I don't want to be ageist or something. I'd be like, oh, the two older people are very similar. But I don't know. I just felt like she was very smart. She was still with it, even if she was a little bit older and that kind of thing. Like, had a kind of a rapier wit and maybe a little bit dry sense of humor. And I got a little, that's maybe me just wanting to have more Mike, but that's how I felt. I wanted more Mike, but getting Marion, it was a little like having some Mike.
Mills is shipping him for sure. And, with that being said, Mills, I want to be like Mike.
Who doesn't? And dude, because again, weird circumstances, the only court action we had this week was food court. So I guess you're off the hook. But, food courts and whatnot, you do seem like a mall guy, the veteran mall rat here. Give me a good mall story, dude.
Well, there was this one time that somebody's girlfriend was going to appear on a dating show being shot at the mall, and well, we had to try to put a stop to it.
Yeah, dude, that's Mallrats. You're talking about Mallrats.
And the kid is back on the escalator.
So you're doing you're doing a Mallrats thing like Frank Reynolds does a Rambo thing. Huh? All right, I mean, I get it. I just, I don't know, man. I don't have that many great mall memories. The main thing I remember is like going to the food court and just getting way more of those free samples than you're supposed to. Like feeling you're getting away with something when you take the third one from the dude in front of the Japanese joint or something.
And for what it's worth, Mills, I feel like at least one of Saul's public masturbators, they had to have gotten caught at the mall, right? I mean, where else are they publicly? It's had to be, at least one had to be the mall. I mean, shit, he had 3 at one point. At least one had to be the mall.
Dude, I already felt the mall was kind of creepy, and you've made it definitely an even creepier place. What's next, dude? You're gonna tell me your favorite pizza joint is Sbarro?
That's probably a bridge too far, but I am partial to Auntie Anne's soft pretzels.
I'll allow it. And this might be slightly blasphemous to say on this show, but when it came to like a kind of dessert thing, I always preferred the original Cookie Company cookies to Cinnabon as kind of my guilty pleasure at the mall. So,
well, I bet that public masturbator also felt pretty guilty about his pleasure at the mall.
and I feel guilty about even bringing this up. Let's get out of these fucking Brookstone recliners, leave the sharper image behind, and hand out some hardware, starting with our favorite quote or piece of dialogue from this episode, Nippy.
I was so close to going with pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. I absolutely love that line. But dude, I got to go with the line that was both intimidating and but like prudent and to the point, but also like funny. And so I got to go with,
I know it's awkward, right? But you don't have to call me dad yet.
Saul, this was his first, like Saul kind of like, he was like the Chuck of the relationship with Jeff, like he clearly one-upped him and was like the bigger brother kind of guy. And I just liked him kind of, coming down on him a little bit and bullying. I'm not pro bullying or anything, but I'm just saying, like he was able to kind of like, one up him, and it worked really well. And that line was hilarious. So anytime you could be like, you don't have to call me dad yet, that's some baller shit.
I'm just now picturing Jeff as Niedermeyer in fucking Animal House. We'll see how that works as a reference. I like that because I kind of had a final 3 here. That was one. I'll give my honorable mention, and this is just because of, again, it's a Parks and Rec thing where, Frank is played by Jim O'Hara, who's Jerry on Parks and Rec, and it's a line where Frank says,
You felt like this?
No, I mean, not me, but people. I think a lot of people.
I thought that was very good, and it makes a lot more sense if it's Jerry Gergich saying it. But I have to say, my favorite quote here is something that I thought was both great and something that is very true to me. And it's when Gene is, talking about football, and he might have been faking it, might not have. And he says,
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I can remember every stitch of clothing I was wearing during that game, but ask me what I had for dinner last night and clean slate.
Dude, I can remember so many weird little things, including what I was wearing during various sporting events or something. And it'd be like, oh yeah, how did you drive 400 miles the other day? And it's just like, the joint from The Simpsons where Homer gets drunk and it's just like scene missing, end of film.
So Mills, with that said, what were you wearing when the Eagles won the Super Bowl?
My leather, because it was definitely February, so I had a black leather jacket. I had black Eagles hoodie on underneath with jeans with Eagles t-shirt under the black hoodie.
And the biggest question I have for you, you were layered up with Eagles gear, but did you eat yellow and drink green?
No, because I pretend that episode of It's Always Sunny doesn't exist, even though it's a 2-parter.
It's not that bad.
They had Pondy. You had Pondy and Jason Kelsey. I don't know what else you can do. You got a damn near a Hall of Fame fucking center. You have a damn near Hall of Fame guest star. It's a zombie season of Always Sunny. I pretend it doesn't exist.
For those of you that are listening, make sure you check out the Night Pod Cometh, where Mills and I and other guests at times break down all of our favorite moments from Always Sunny. Can't Stop, Won't Stop. Awesome fucking shit.
Just covered the gang solves the gas crisis. which then the actual gang just covered on their podcast. So you did double whammy here. This is very relevant, although gas prices are going down. And call me when it hits 99 cents.
But back to Saul Over Soon, baby.
All right, we had some good quotes there. Now it's time for us to give our favorite scene or moment from Nippy. I'll go first here. This is really close. I wanted to go with the montage of Gene getting close with the security guards. I thought it was an excellent montage, but I already talked about that a ton. So I want to go with something that I found was a little bit of a power move. And that's when, you kind of see Jeff in the cab and he arrives home, walks into his kitchen where he finds fucking Saul Goodman flirting with his elderly mother. That's a flex right there, bro. That's a flex. And Gene's just leaning into it, giving him the looks and everything, slowly sipping the drink. He's staying for dinner, just fucking lording over him like he's the of the year.
I was so close to doing, I didn't want to do the con, and I was like, all right, I'm so close to giving it to Gene there at the end when he's looking at the shirt and hanging it up. And even when he dug out the pinky ring, like there's moments in this, but dude, I'll be damned. I got to give it to the whole scene where he's running through the mall. Jeff's running through the mall, collecting the shit, singing the little melody that, that they came up with. One, Armani suits out the door, like all this stuff, Armani suits and run, like going the whole thing. And then the slip and the fall, the spit of the coffee, like that whole moment, it was a culmination of like the entire episode building up to that point. It was so well done. The back and forth between Jeff and like his angle as he's running through back to Jimmy, the threat for the first time throughout the entire time Jimmy is bringing Frank Cinnabon, the threat of Frank turning around existed, right? I don't know if it's just because we're paranoid because the con's happening, but I felt like any moment Frank was going to just turn around. In fact, before he started, he actually turned around, which was something he hadn't done in any of the others. So I thought that was just really well done. Great scene. And man, I like a whodunit. I like this. I like the con. They get me every time. Pretty damn cool. Now, in honor.
Well, just got to give him a touch of credit. This is an episode where there's some outstanding quotes and they were trying to lean hard into the comedy at times. And maybe the funniest thing is that when you see a guy on a black and white monitor slip and fall, and then just an actor just subtly choke on his coffee. No words, no anything. And that might have been the funniest shit in a very humorous episode. Very impressive.
In honor of one of our favorite characters, it's time to choose our
Nacho Man. I want to be a Nacho Man.
Who is your Nacho Man or woman, the MVP of this episode of Better Call Saul? Nippy.
Oh, there's some good contenders here. I think the clear top three, I think, is Marion, Gene, and Frank. I feel like we'll get another chance to maybe give it to Gene. And he does okay here, but I don't think that he actually got Jeff off of his back necessarily. So I don't know if I can give it to him. Marion was fine, but she was just kind of mostly there. So I got to give it to Frank, dude. He gets to talk Nebraska football with his new friend. He loves doing that. Gets free Cinnabon every night. And no one's even going to really notice this shit. He won't get in any trouble for it. He's really cool to Gene when he kind of has his breakdown. And you find out that, like, no, he's never even had a bad day in his life. Frank is a fucking baller, dude. My Nacho Man is Frank. Jamie G, who is your Nacho Man or woman of the episode?
Frank is my runner up, and you're right. You could have been a contender. I've got to give it to Gene. And here's why. I don't think he completely got rid of Jeff problem here. And got him excited about doing the con and then like pulled it away. It's like, hey, here's this great life that you want. Oh, never mind, you can't have it. I think that might come back to rear its head, but just to see Gene break out of his miserable fucking life for 2 seconds and have some fun and do what he does best, build relationships and figure shit out and freaking pull off these wild things, dude. It was just having a little confidence, being himself for once. I'm happy for Gene, and he needed it. He deserves it. And because of all that, Gene, you're my Nacho Man. And come on, dude, how great is Odenkirk here? I mean, let's not forget, this is after he had the heart attack. Dude comes back, does this whole fucking episode. He's got none of his normal guest stars and folks. It was all him. Great job.
it wasn't Mr. Show this week, it was the Bobby O Show. It really was. And again, holding his own against legends of the stage and screen, great character actors. All the focus is on him. He's got physical stuff, he's got subtle stuff, he's got over the top stuff. He's doing it all this episode. And like LL Cool J, he's doing it and doing it and doing it very well. That brings us to the point of the episode where we need to stop thinking like Gene and start thinking like Walter White, because it's time to give a grade to Nippy. We grade each episode of Better Call Saul on a scale of 1 to 10. Marco's pinky rings. Jamie G, how many pinky rings are you handing out for the Nippy?
And this is tough, Magnum Mills, because it's not your typical episode. And you know what? It like I could see where people would be like, it was too slow. I didn't like the black and white, blah, blah, blah. I didn't, if you're gonna give me Gene, I didn't want this. Like I could see where people could kind of bitch and moan about this, but I'm gonna go the opposite way, man. They pulled off something that I think is really difficult to do. And they did it so well. Maybe I'm a homer here and I just love this show, but dude, I'm giving this thing 8.9 pinky rings all day. I thought it was fantastic. I'm not as huge of a Park and Recs guy, so I probably don't have the extra points that you'll have on there, but I feel very comfortable at 8.9. I loved it. I hope we get more of Gene. I'm so excited to see what they do with these final 3 episodes.
You're pretty much right. I am going to go with 9.2 pinky rings. I think I was probably around a 9 flat. I'm giving it the Jerry bump here. Shout out Jim O'Hare. Really enjoyed the whole thing. You can make the argument at the end that we're more or less in a similar place, but Gene has made some new friends, more or less. We'll see how many of them come back around here. Something we'll touch on in a minute in predictions. But for the most part, even if it is more of a little bit of a standalone episode, I really enjoyed it. We got a cool heist. We got cool montages, got some great one-liners. So even if this winds up being one of kind of the lighter or just less consequential episodes as far as plot stuff of this kind of back half of the season, I'm there for it. 9.2 of them pinky ring shits.
Pinky ring shit.
Welcome to Weapon World. You shot me in the dick!
I'm obsessed with wieners. But what about HBO?
Tell me if you really think that Marion doesn't know who Gene really is.
I have to think about it because she seemed very smart. And she also, like she said, back in Albuquerque, like she also lived there. Like maybe she moved away with Jeff to get him out of there. I don't know. I feel like she didn't recognize him at first, but when they're in that kitchen, I don't know. There's just something there. I don't know. Maybe she's got some backstory we don't know about, and she was something back in the day or whatever. But I'm not going to say for sure, but I think there's at least a chance that maybe one of the little twists is that Marion actually knows that Gene is Saul. Like Jeff tells her something, and she's like, "Don't you think I know that, Jeffy?"
How cool would it be to see Marion running a con on? It was kind of like when Howard Hamlin decided to try to run a con on Jimmy, and it backfired in his face. It would be kind of neat here to see Marion do the same thing. I'm gonna say she doesn't, but you're right. When she brought up Albuquerque and Lucky You, kind of made it seem like maybe she lived there at one point too. I'm going to go, just because you said yay, I'm going to say nay.
Fair enough. Well, how about Jeffy? Do we see him again? And if we do, is it because he wants to pull off another job, or because he's kind of salty that Gene didn't want to be his new bestie?
I think we do see him again. I don't know that they can just cut this short and then that's it. That whole problem solved. They dedicated an entire episode to Gene solving this problem, and I'm not super comfortable that it's completely solved. So I'm going to say yes, we do see him again, and I think it's because he's either A, trying to pull off another job, B, in trouble, or C, all the above.
Fair enough. I'll go with a little bit of a cheat. I definitely say we see him again because I remember Carol Burnett saying she appeared in multiple episodes. I think it'd be weird if she showed up again and not Jeff. And I think basically he like either uses all the shit for himself or he blows it or something. He needs more dough and he's salty. So a little bit of the various columns. I'm there with that for you. Next episode, Jamie G, all Breaking Bad, all Gene, or combination platter.
I don't think they can go right back to the well with Gene. So I'm going to say it's a combination of Breaking Bad and like the Saul timeline of what we saw in the previous episode. I'm going to say Gene doesn't come up in this next episode.
Oh, man, I just want to go way off the board here just for the fuck of it. Let's just say we just got an episode where Bob Odenkirk was the only main cast member. What if the next episode, Reese Seahorn's the only main character? And we get the whole
Kim
thing where like she starts out in color and ends up in black and white, bringing us kind of into the current Gene timeline or something like that. I don't know. I just think it would be cool. And while we're speaking about that, we're still waiting. Are the Breaking Bad cameos coming next episode? Yes or no?
I think at least one of them is. Again, I don't think they can go 2 episodes in a row. It's like, okay, all Gene, all Saul, or I'm sorry, all Breaking Bad. But we only got 3 left. Eventually they got to do it. Now, it would be interesting if they went back to back, all Gene and then all Kim. That would be wild. Sign me up for that, actually. But I'm going to say we get at least one of the Breaking Bad cameos this next episode.
I think you basically have to. It feels like, I guess at this point, I do feel like there's a chance maybe we only get 1 episode kind of within that timeline. It also feels like if you're going to do the Breaking Bad timeline, don't you kind of have to probably go to a point where Mike and Gus are also out there too? So do you think if we get Breaking Bad, are we also getting Gus and Mike in addition to Walter White and Jesse Pinkman? Kind of have to, right?
It feels like we have to, doesn't it? I don't know how
you can't go the rest of the show without seeing Mike again, right? You can't go the rest of the show without seeing Mike again. Maybe you get away with Gus. Like it feels like his thing kind of came to an end. But Gus felt kind of, or excuse me, Mike felt kind of unfulfilled there after the thing with Nacho's dad or whatever. I don't know. I would like to see Mike get a little bit because I wouldn't say the show did him dirty, but I think he met kind of an inauspicious end at the hands of Walter White. So I would like to maybe give Mike a little bit more, just a little bit more depth or something like that in there. Give him kind of not necessarily redeem his depth, but maybe be able to add some more context to it or something like that.
Yeah, I certainly am there for that, man. I hope that they do. Mike's our guy. It sucked to see him kind of go out when he didn't need to. That's something I'll never forget Walt for, like ever. I will never forget Walt for doing that.
Yeah, especially at the end when he's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't even need to kill you. I could have just gotten the names from Lydia." It's like, oh man, like you really Walt.
You're a real piece of shit. Like, that was when it was kind of like, all right, I'm ready for Walt to like.
The show did a good job again of setting, and that's why you kind of feel right, like they set you up for the fall of Walter White in Breaking Bad, but it doesn't really feel like they're setting you up for the fall of Gene Takovic here, right? Or at least they're making it more ambiguous.
They are. And you could make a case that maybe this episode of Nippy kind of sets it up to where it's like, okay, he shouldn't have taken that much risk. He could be, he could be exposed here. But on the other hand, the other side of the coin is he solved that how Jimmy and Saul know how to solve problems. Now, we'll see if he fully solved it or not. Both you and I are leaning towards maybe not. But I don't know that you can read much more into that and be like, okay, that was them setting us up for like this thing where he's going to end up in jail or something. Like, basically we don't want to see him die and we don't want to see him end up in jail. Right. So anything other than that, I guess, is a win. Obviously we'd love to see him reunite with Kim and like live happily ever after. And some like, I'm agreeing with you. They haven't really set us up for like, this guy deserves like the Black Death. I mean, he's not exactly Cersei Lannister here. We're basically rooting for the guy.
Yeah, it's hard not to root for him at this point. I guess the only other characters that we really have to wonder about, security guys. We can see Frank and Nick again.
I'm gonna say no. We don't see him again. Unfortunately, they were great. Frank was wonderful, but I'm gonna say no.
I'm gonna say that we don't see Nick again, but Jimmy. Excuse me. I went Jimmy instead of Gene. But I'm going to say that Gene finds another use for Frank at some point here. Now let's just open the floor. Any wild speculation, any other predictions? I just have one here. in that it's at some point Gene becomes a true Nebraska Cornhuskers fan. He goes to a game, and at that game is where he sees Kim. I mean, there's a lot of people there, right? There's like 80,000 people there. It increases your odds.
Increases the odds for sure.
Like he sees her on the scoreboard or something, maybe. I don't know.
It just they have to have some sort of cross. Like, will you feel let down? Let's put it this way. Will you feel like this show let you down if you never get another Kim, Gene, Jimmy, like whatever? Like if we don't ever see Kim and Saul, Jimmy, Gene together again, will it let you down a little bit? Just a smidge?
Yes and no. I do feel that we need to see Kim again, but I don't know if they have to have lines to each other. I'll go with my other thought I had here, and that's when you hear Gene give the story about, oh, Nippy, he wound up with a family. He was there the whole time, just a few blocks away. What if kind of the end of all this is that he finds out that Kim literally lives just a few blocks away from him, but she's happily living there with her family? And he kind of like goes and does the thing where he looks in the window and then maybe like leaves the pinky ring in the mailbox or something.
Oh man.
I mean, that's heartbreaking, but again, he would be making the choice if she's happy with a family or something, to accepting the fact that he might be a bad influence on her in not wanting to, maybe possibly let that bleed into her family life or her children or whatever.
I could accept that, but again, it gives us that one more scene tying them together. What I think where I'll be a little bit let down is like that last, if the last thing we see of them together was her kind of breaking his heart and accepting what she's become with him and just leaving, I'll feel slightly like, damn, I wish we would have gotten one more. Like, I know we're probably not going to get, like, the chances of them reuniting and like running away together and living happily ever after are very slim, but something. They crossed each other in the food court. Something, for Christ's sakes. He's in the freaking grocery store and he sees her with her family. Something. Anything. I want something.
I'm trying to go with another fun one here. Like if we know we get a scene with Cranston and Aaron Paul and Odenkirk together, I'm going to go with, it's a random scene. It's that kind of way back, and Jesse and Walt are out in the RV. They're cooking. All of a sudden, fucking Saul walks in, and they're like, "Dude, what the fuck?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, you think no one knows where you guys are or whatever?" And then he talks to him about something, but it's it's independent enough where it wouldn't necessarily affect the continuity of anything, but it would just let them get in like kind of the classic scene with the RV and the cook and everything. I don't know. I just think that would kind of be cool. And also kind of, again, Saul doing the flex and be like, you guys are nearly the criminals you think you are.
Yeah. And it kind of reigned true with like his the way he kind of treated them guys throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's about it. I don't really have any. I'm trying to, make with the wild speculation. I mean, I don't know. Like, can we bury someone in the Cinnabon? Like we bury people in the Super Lab. Can we bury someone in the Cinnabon? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if they have enough frosting. Mills, will there be another death? 3 episodes left.
I mean, you're basically asking, will we see Gene or Kim die? That's basically the questions, right? Unless maybe Jeff. All right. I'll say Jeff or Jeff's friend dies. Maybe. Why not?
No to Marion though, because we already know she's coming back.
You can't kill Carol with that. It's against the rules.
Can't kill Carol.
She could die, but it would be a natural death. I wouldn't count that. Like maybe she dies peacefully in her sleep. She dies in her sleep, and that sets Jeff off. Like she leaves all her shit to Gene, who she just met. Jeff's like, "What the fuck, dude?"
Oh wow, yeah. He says it again. He's
like, "Were you fucking my mother?" I don't know that one. Again, you want wild speculation. There you go. That's pretty wild. I don't even know if Reddit's gotten to that one yet.
We're 3 episodes left, Magnum Mills. When we see Jesse and or Walt, are you still sticking with it skips over to the Breaking Bad timeline? It is not in the Better Call Saul timeline. Or are you now open to it being in the Gene timeline?
Again, I mean, Walter White showing up, if he was going to show up as like a Star Wars Force Ghost, it would have happened already. So, I guess there's just no way you can't. It has to be set basically before they get disappeared. There's no way around that, I think.
And so do you think, so when we see Walter White, will he be full blown Heisenberg? Will he have the shaved head and the goatee, dude? Like,
I'm going one pre Heisenberg, one post Heisenberg. I think we get 2 scenes with him. So I'm going one, I'm saying the scene with him and Jesse is like pre Heisenberg, and then he has a scene where it's just him and Saul, or no Jesse, and he's full on shaved head Heisenberg.
I see. Okay. All right. Man, that's so not how he looked, in the end of Breaking Bad when he comes back and he's got the weapon and all that.
I don't think you can mess with anything, because at that point, he's in Nebraska already. Like, that's what this let us establish, is that in that period, he's already there. So I don't see any way they could really interact post being disappeared by Ed.
Yeah.
Shout out Robert Forster, RIP.
Yep.
Yo, Jackie Brown. We talked about Tarantino earlier. Jackie Brown, highly underrated.
Highly underrated. And dude, he had a great taste in music in that movie, for sure. I think that about does it, Mills. What is on tap right here coming up on Saul Over Soon?
I mean, you'd have to ask the bartender what's on tap, but I don't even know, dude, because we don't have a title for episode 11. We do know that it airs on Monday, August 1st, and it's written and directed by Thomas Schnauz, the man with the sharp Wisconsin cheese. So shout out Mr. Schnauz, man. This is a big lift to be writing and directing the third from last episode of Better Call Saul. You've killed it all along. Keeping the faith here. Should be a good one.
Shit, dude. There's 3 episodes left. I mean, I can't even believe we're that close to the end. Thank you again, everyone, for checking us out. We appreciate it so much. We hope that you enjoy Saul Over Soon as much as we enjoy doing it. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and or our YouTube channel, because that's out there too. And as Mills said earlier, there are benefits of going to the tube. If you've got any theories about how the show is going to wrap up, please do not hesitate. Just go ahead and drop us a comment on our YouTube channel, or send it over directly to moi and the man with the plan, Magnum Mills, at sauloversoon@gmail.com. We will get back to you promptly. Mills, tell our fantastic audience where they can find all of our other awesome content that happens to be free of charge.
Well, I mean, it's a Scooby-Doo adjacent reference, but our audience, you are fantastic and boombastic. Thanks again for checking us out. This has been Saul Over Soon. You can find us again, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever your platform of choice is, just by searching for Saul Over Soon. We're on social media at Saul Over Soon. And as the man said, you can send your feedback to sauloversoon@gmail.com. We're from the Joe Blow Football Show, who you can find at joeblowfootballshow.com, which is also where you can find our YouTube channel. The Joe Blow Football Show is on social media at Joe Blow Show. As we mentioned earlier, we continue to cover It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia on The Night Pod Cometh. Find us on your favorite podcast thing by searching for Night Pod Cometh, and on social media at Night Pod Cometh. And again, as we also mentioned, we just got done with our coverage of The Boys from Amazon. That was season 3. It was a hell of a ride. You should check us out on Compound B, again, on your favorite podcast app, and on social media at Compound B Pod. And we're about to cover the first season of the Game of Thrones spinoff, House of the Dragon, on Drunk on Dragons. We're going to drink in order to hope that it's better than the final season of Game of Thrones. But based on the trailers, we have high hopes. We hope you check us out again on your favorite podcast platform. Just search for Drunk on Dragons on social media at Drunk on Dragons. Thank you very much again for checking us out. I am Magnum Mills. He's Jamie G. And obviously at this point, we are all in the fucking game now. And
it's Saul Over Soon. We'll see you next time to discuss the next episode, episode 11 of season 6. Peace and love.
This has been Saul Over Soon, a Better Call Saul podcast. This show is for entertainment purposes only. We are in no way affiliated with Better Call Saul, AMC, Sony Pictures Television, Netflix, or any other production company or association. The views here are those of the hosts only and do not represent any other entity. Thanks again for checking us out, and stay tuned because it's Saul Over Soon.